Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar of how to get your business to the top of Google in no time at all. I'm Pam Viveris from Think Tech, based out of New Bedford, Massachusetts, and I am really excited about our guest for today, Tom Malesic from EZSolution. He is the owner and CEO of EZSolution, based out of Pennsylvania. Started that company in 1997, he's had tremendous growth in his company over the last few years, and he really has had a philosophy around helping clients with their web design, their marketing, really been dedicated in that area. And Tom is actually a graduate of Penn State University, and he is an author of the book, What Your Web Developer Never Tells You, which is an excellent book, and I do recommend you get a copy of that from Tom. I'll tell you how to do that at the end. But today's topic, as I said, is how to get your business to the top of Google in no time at all. Tom is going to be sharing some amazing tips with you today, so this will be a very advantageous call. You'll be very glad that you joined us today. So Tom, are you there?
Absolutely.
All right, well, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Pam. This is going to be an exciting webinar today.
No, yeah, absolutely, no problem at all. So Tom, why don't you, just for our viewers and listeners, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you got started in this whole helping people get to the top of Google, helping them with their websites. You know, give us kind of the background of how that unfolded.
Sure. Well, I started in '97 really doing web development for small businesses. And what ended up happening as an outgrowth of that was one thing to have a website, but then people needed to be able to find your website. And in the early 2000s, it was really easy to get your website to be at the top of Google, or really then it was Yahoo was the big player. So really you could just take words and put them in white text on a white background. Nobody would see the words, and Yahoo and the other search engines would just pop you right up to the top. I mean, it was really cheesy, and there wasn't that much competition, so it just wasn't that hard. But then as different search engines started to come into play and search engines got smarter because they didn't want web developers to trick them, then those tactics no longer worked. So over the years we've had different levels of success with search engine marketing. We had a huge upsurge, and then I started to outsource search engine marketing as it got really hard. And really within the last 2 years, we have just mastered the concept of search engine marketing to really be able to guarantee that we can get pretty much any keyword phrase for any business to be on the first page of Google.
That's really amazing, and it's actually interesting. I hadn't really thought about it, but that is true that this whole phenomenon of trying to figure out how to get your business noticed and findable, when your prospects and your potential customers are looking for you, it's a relatively new concept, and that's a really interesting point, that it's only been the last few years that you guys have really, that there's been a need for it, right?
Absolutely, because certainly everybody wanted to have a website, in the last 5 years. The question is, it's not do you have a website, it's what's your web address. And people are still using a lot of traditional marketing that you're just really seeing going away. I mean, the Yellow Pages itself is just really struggling, and it's because people aren't using it. Most business owners they sit at their computer all day. They're not going to pick up the Yellow Pages. They're just going to go to Google, type in what they're looking for, and that's how they're finding their information now. So as society shifts how they research things and how they gain information, and as that moves to the web, it becomes more important than ever before that you're found on the first page of Google.
All right, great. Well, and just for everyone listening, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. I know you have some great content to share with us today. So for everyone on the call, if you do have any questions, feel free to type in. There's a questions tab on your little pane there when you logged into this webinar. So feel free to type in your questions there, and we'll be answering those live at the end of the call. So let's start here, Tom. You have kind of a good overview of sort of what Google is and what are the elements of Google that are important for us to know as business owners. So could you start there and tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We're going to just do a basic search here. I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so I'm just going to type in landscaper Lancaster. So there are several parts of Google. There are these listings right here that have the alphabet letters, And you've probably seen over the last 6 months that this has moved to different spots. And this corresponds with this map over here. Now, what Google tries to do, this is called Google Local. And what Google tries to do is figure out where you live. In this case, Google's confused because it actually is showing me a map of Lancaster, California. So all these listings aren't from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They're from California. It tries to figure out where you live, and then it tries to display things that are local to you. And Google Local is going to become more predominant in the next couple of years, in my opinion, that Google's really trying to figure out how does it return the best results if you're not typing a state with it. All right, so this is Google Local. Then you have these paid ads. Here on the side here it says ads.
Sure.
And then sometimes you used to see ads that appear here, and sometimes you do. In this example, it's just not showing ads at the very top of the screen.
Right.
All right, so these are called Google AdWords. Some people call them pay-per-click or PPC, are kind of the buzzwords. And these people simply, they pay to be here. So this is an auction. This is he or she with the most money wins. Okay, but these two sections aren't really what we're talking about. Typically, 20% of the people will click on a paid ad.
Okay.
So if you do a search, that means 80% of the people are clicking in the main body section here. So the first organic listing, so what Google best thinks matches what was typed in, is this listing here with Earth, Turf, and Wood. And no coincidence, Pam, Earth, Turf, and Wood is a client of mine that we're doing search engine marketing for, and so is Hostler's Homescapes.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So I have two clients, the exact same word. They're spots 1 and 2.
Okay, so there are three main areas. You have the local that you talked about, and that, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's relatively new in terms of that really getting moved all the way to the top, because sometimes there's not even ads at the top anymore, correct?
Correct.
So there's that local search, which you believe is going to become more important for people to really get their arms around. Then there's the ads, the Google AdWords. Those are people that pay, and now you're seeing those often to the side, but sometimes still at the top. And then finally, the organic search. And you're saying really the organic search, the ones that come up below the local, is where you can really help people get to the top. That's where most people struggle in that area, correct?
Correct. Here's the interesting thing, and people say, well, why do I want to be on the first page of Google? Well, the biggest reason is that 10% of the people that do a Google search will go to the second page. So most traffic stays on the first page, and if they don't find what they want on the first page, they type something else in.
That's really interesting to know. So you have, I mean, obviously you've done it just for this landscaper, and even with the Lancaster, California kind of stuff coming up, the Lancaster, Pennsylvania landscaper still coming up as the top two.
Exactly.
So what are the elements, what are the things that as a business owner or perhaps as a marketing manager for a company that you need to know to be able to start to take advantage of this? It seems like Google is this big vat of mysteriousness in terms of how they move it up, but you have somehow cracked the code. So share with us, what are the things that we need to know to help our rankings in Google?
Exactly. The first thing you need to do is to figure out what are people going to type in. So in this example, I typed in landscaper Lancaster. Now, it also gave me a did you mean landscape Lancaster. So maybe landscape Lancaster is a good word to place on. And then here again on the first page, here's Hostlers, here's Earth, Turf, and Wood. Then sometimes people will type in PA with it. Okay, so this returns a different set of results. Again, here's Earth, Turf, and Wood, here's Hostlers. So figuring out what people type in is really critical. So what we do is Google's nice enough to actually show us reports based on information that we ask them about what do people type in. So there's kind of no sense in going after a keyword phrase or being on the first page of Google for a keyword phrase that no one types in. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like, it's kind of, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a noise?
Right.
So, all right, so we did this is a keyword research that we did for Hostlers here. So we came up with a lot of different choices. So we have landscaping. Reading is another town near me, York, Lidditz, Lancaster. So we typed in landscapers, landscaping, landscape, and put different town names with it to figure out what did people type in. Then Google's nice enough to tell us how many people a month actually do that. Okay, so Google thinks 140 people a month type in landscaping Reading. Then Google thinks that if you type that in, Google will return 3,730,000 results.
Wow, yeah.
There are 10 listings. There are 10 listings on the first page.
Wow.
So you have to beat a lot of other websites to get on the first page.
Yeah, no question about that.
Then the other thing we look at is where's your site placed right now on that phrase? Because obviously, if you're on the first page, well, do you want to spend effort to get to the first page? You're already there. So it's kind of a metric as to where do you place right now. So in this example, when we ran this report, Landscaping Lidditz PA had 73 people a month type it in, 43,000 websites compete for it, and this particular client was already on he's on the third page because he's spot 22. So he was the second one on the third page. Okay. But again, if you're on the third page, because no one goes beyond the first page, you might as well be on page 3,000. Like it doesn't matter. Right. So hitting the market, you think, oh, hey, I'm on spot number 22 out of 43,000. That's pretty good. But the reality is it isn't. You're not going to get any more results there than any of these listings that says, hey, we couldn't even find you in the first 500 spots. Yeah, and I think that's another really good point. And not only has this changed so much over the last 10 years or so in terms of its importance, like you said before, it's not having a website anymore. Of course, you have to have a website. That's like a given, but it's what's your web address. But this type of statistics have changed as well. And I think a lot of business owners get into the allure of the stats and saying, oh, I'm, like in this example, I'm 22 out of 43,000. Well, yeah, that's great, except it's not going to get you any new business. Exactly. So what good is that? I actually have a question from one of our viewers. Do you want me to take that now, Tom, or do you want to? Sure, go ahead. Pepper in some questions here. So this one comes from Eileen. She wants to know how you can improve the 3-click factor to appeal to your clients, but also increase the clicks on your site. So I think what she's referring to is, kind of on search engines. Would you create something where it wasn't multiple clicks? In other words, where they can click one time, they see you, they can go through, or I believe that's what she's referring to. Boy, I'm not sure I understand the question. Is the 3-click factor for within the site, or within the search engines, you have to be on the first page, so there's really no 3-click factor. Okay. So in other words, I don't know if she's referring to you click to page number 2 or to page number 3, and then, hey, you're found here on page number 3. Right. Yes, I think that's what she's asking. Yeah. The point is that we can't be on page number 3. If we want to get traffic to your site, we absolutely need to be on the first page. And the higher up on the first page we are, the more success we're going to have. So our ultimate goal is to be spot number 1 on page 1. Okay. All right, great. Even though we get first page placement, we're still trying to work to get that placement higher on the page. Okay. Okay, great. And thanks for the question, Eileen. Good question. Absolutely. Thanks, Eileen. Okay, so you have so we have the statistics. So now, what do we do? What do we do with this information now that you have sort of where you're at? Okay, so we pick out these keywords. Then we're going to take a look at. Let's just get back to here. We're going to take a look at our site and what our competitors' sites look like. So what I want to walk you through here is I'm going to show you Earth, Turf, and Wood, and I want to show you Hostlers. So part of what we're trying to look at are images and content. So in this case, this site is very graphically oriented. You've got a big rotation of a picture. These graphics on the side here, these are graphics, not text. Really, we don't have a tremendous amount of text. We have text here on the side. We have a little bit of text here. And we actually have some kind of little bit hidden text here. not really hidden, but it's just in a light color that's tougher to see. So we need to have kind of a mix of the keywords that we're looking for. So if you look through the copy here, we're going to get the word landscaping in here. We've got our town names kind of highlighted here. So text on the screen is going to be an important factor. It is not the most important factor. So let's kind of go through. Google has lots and lots of factors that they look at. So the idea is that we want to make sure that we're good on the lesser important factors, that we have our bases covered, but on the most important factor, we want to have that be a slam dunk. Okay, so
it's kind of like in running your business. You have 10,000 things to do, but you've got to do your top 3 priorities, and as long as you get those done, you move forward. Same
exactly,
concept, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
The good thing with search engine optimization is that once it's done, so you don't have to constantly do it over again. So we want to make sure that we have some text, and we want to make sure that we have what are called meta tags. So this is programming that lives behind the screen that the visitor doesn't see, but Google sees. What you can see is in the top here, in this top band, where it says landscape design and landscaping Lancaster, Reading, and Harrisburg. These are called meta tags, and that's specifically called the title tag. So you want to make sure that the keywords that you're going after are in that title tag. Okay. So and we flip over here to Hostlers, same kind of thing. Okay. Now Hostlers has more text to pull from, and we're using the word landscape, landscaper more. So here's landscape. One of their words is actually fire pits, so that's in here. We've got our town names down here. So we're really trying to cover our bases with keywords, and then making sure that the site's appealing. So your other factor is, great, so you get to the first page of Google, they get to your site, and then they don't do anything. Right? So in both these cases, these are attractive sites. So you look at this and say, oh, these guys probably know what they're doing. And let's look at some sites. So I searched further down in the listings here, and so I came up with this landscaper, not local to me. It looks like he's up in near Buffalo, New York, but not a real appealing kind of site. And I think I found him on like page 18.
Okay.
Okay, so I looked hard just for this example. Okay, so not the greatest looking site. Now this is a nice looking site, but this site's problem is nothing's really readable. So all these graphics here, Google can't see these.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I looked at this, and the first thing I thought is, what is this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like pretty pictures, but I'm like,
it's a real attractive site, but Google can't read these words, landscape, hardscapes. What they can read is this. All right, so even then when I go further into here, Google can't read any of these words. And kind of a trick for all of our listeners today is, the way you can tell if it's a graphic or if it's internet text is if you click and drag your mouse and it highlights, Google can read it. So this is readable text because I can highlight it. I can't highlight this, so Google can't read it. Google sees it as a graphic.
So then, Tom, what did you say, you were talking about sort of step one is to find out what your keywords are. What are the things that people are actually typing out there to find you?
Absolutely. That's a critical step.
It's a critical step. The second thing then is to kind of look at who you're up against, who your competitors are, by kind of looking at their sites and sort of where do they rank. And then as far as this goes, are you saying maybe look at your own site and see, do you have the keywords, but maybe they're hidden in a graphic as opposed to being searchable?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to make sure that Google doesn't see any errors within your site. We look at some sites and there would be JavaScript errors all over the place, or the text isn't readable, or it has really bad grammatical errors. So you want to make sure that you have a solid site.
Okay, great. Have a solid site. So really take the time and go through it. And I'll just from my own experience, I'll say that I'm guilty of this as well. I mean, obviously we have a technology company. We eliminate computer and network headaches for businesses, and so obviously it's important for me to have a good site. And there have been times where I've set aside some time and I look through it and I say, oh my gosh, well, this is wrong or that shouldn't be there. So it really does take that time of put it on your calendar every couple months or every quarter or whatever. Make sure you're going on your site, looking at it, making sure everything is running, or that you have an outsourced company, like yours, Tom, where you guys are kind of checking all that stuff and maintaining it and making sure that everything runs smoothly.
Exactly. Exactly. Now, the other factor is the number of pages within your site. So, Pam, your site's a great example because you probably have probably more than 30 or 40 pages within your site. Mm-hmm. So think of it this way. Think back to college when you took probability and statistics. So if you have a 5-page website, Google has 5 chances to find your site.
Sure.
If you have a 100-page website, Google has 100 chances to find your site. Hmm. So from a probability and statistics standpoint, which site do you think Google likes better?
I would say probably the 100.
Exactly. So yeah. I'm not saying that every site needs to be 100 pages, but the bigger your site is, the better chance that you always have with the search engines and having Google like you.
Okay. And what is your advice for folks, maybe there's somebody on the call going, okay, well, I have no idea how I would even make 100 pages of, stuff. Do you have some suggestions around that, on how they would expand their site to be a larger site?
Yeah, that's a good question. The easiest areas to expand a site are going to be on your products or services. So the more detailed you can be on the types of products and services that you offer, that's where you're going to get a lot of the growth of your content.
That's great.
The next thing you can do is, I think people really neglect their About Us sections. So you can certainly detail out your staff, your community involvement, your mission, maybe some corporate events that you have. So there's always that area to beef up as well. The other thing you do, which Pam, you do a great job of, is the articles section. So what content and resources are you putting on your site? Now, a lot of people will call that, they'll say, well, I use that, that's my blog. Other people would say that's just content on my website. But it's that, how are you being the expert in the industry and really sharing your information that you can really help your clients? So that's how I would expand that text. And certainly, I'm just a huge fan of video. So the more video content you can have, the better off you can be as well, because Google likes to see YouTube videos.
Okay, great. So this whole piece, you talked about obviously the keywords, looking at your site, making sure that you can, Google can find those keywords that are on your site, looking at your competition, and then really what you're talking about here is just sort of that content gathering, kind of getting as much information as you can and putting it, breaking it down in as many pages as you can.
Exactly.
But is there anything on the negative side of that, or anything people should look out for and not do in terms of content gathering?
I'm a believer that you can never have too much content, but it's not the critical factor in search engine marketing. That's probably more of a conversion rate factor. I need some content to be on your site so that those keywords can be involved, but it's not the number one factor for me.
All right. Well, my next question is going to be,
what's the
what
number
is?
One
yeah.
All right. This is the tricky one, and this is the hardest one to execute on. Everything we've talked about so far has been, hey, you can do this yourself, or give your webmaster a call and he or she will take care of this for you. The biggest factor is link building. So Google's basic premise says that if lots of websites link to your website, you are important. And then Google says that they have this little ranking scale, and it goes from 0 to 10. And believe it or not, a 4 ranking is great. 5 is wonderful. So websites that Google thinks have a 4 rating to 10, if those sites link to you, you must be really important. Okay, so Google is nothing more than a glorified popularity contest. So remember back in 7th grade, the most popular kid had lots of friends, right?
Right, sure.
So that's Google. Google wants to see that you have lots of friends, because if you have lots of friends, you must be important.
Interesting. Okay, and
so it's how do you make your website kind of the center of influence? So think about big websites like WebMD. Okay, pretty much every doctor's office website links at some point to WebMD, because WebMD is such a resource center for content. Okay, so WebMD pushes up the list because lots of websites link to it. So our job is to figure out how do we get other websites to link to you, because let's face it, I mean, Microsoft's probably not going to link to you, maybe. Your vendors probably aren't, you might be able to get some vendors to link to you. Other people will say, well, you link to me, I'll link to you. That's bad.
Okay. Why is that bad?
Tim, if I link to you and you link to me, we just canceled each other out.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's not only is it linking, having other sites link to you, but it's just one-way link.
Yes. This is all self-centered selfishness on our part.
Okay.
We just want links coming to us, and we don't want to give back.
It really is 7th grade. It really is 7th grade.
It is 7th grade, absolutely. Now, there are programmatic ways that you can link to somebody else and have it not impact you. So you might say, some people say, well, I really want to link to these other sites because they're good resources. This is good value-added content for my web visitor. So we want that to happen. And there's a piece of code that your web developer can put in there. It's called a no-follow tag.
Okay.
So what that means is Google will see that there's a link, but it won't go to the link. So it's not lending your link popularity to that site. So there are tricks to not have it do that, but the idea is that we get people to link to you.
Okay.
Now, the hard part is where do you find these places, right?
Right, exactly. That was going to be my next question. So you can have your web developer put in the no-follow code if you are having if you're linking to another site, so that it doesn't do the cancel out kind of thing. But you're saying more importantly, you need to be handling it a little bit differently. So talk about that.
Correct. Now, the way we find these websites that are willing to link to you, everything that we do through an automated process. So in other words, I don't want to pick up the phone. I don't want to send an email and wait for a response. I only want to submit to places that will automatically let me post the link on their site. And I want the link to have the keyword in it that I'm targeting. So if Landscaper Lancaster is my keyword phrase, I want the link that is on their site to say Landscaper Lancaster. So these are blogs, they're article directories, they're forums. So these are all sites that are easily accessible, that I can just fill out a form and I have a link.
Interesting. And I mean, I would think that would certainly expand your universe as far as connecting to other sites. I mean, are there a lot of those types of sites out there?
There are thousands and thousands. Yeah, wow. This isn't a, we're a needle in a haystack kind of exercise. Now, here's the interesting thing. They don't have to be related to your industry.
Really?
So you could find a blog on cooking, and you could post your link on the cooking blog.
Very interesting.
And Google still values that link as long as that blog website had a page rank of 4 or better.
I see. So the actual sites that you're linking to, the rankings of those sites matter as well.
Yes. Because remember, if you're not the popular kid in 7th grade and you hang out with a popular kid, now you're popular.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Well, that's pretty easy to remember.
Yeah.
Okay. And so all of this that we're talking about is about that optimization, that word that we kind of toss around. It's just about really what it means in a nutshell is getting higher on Google rankings.
That's exactly what it means.
So it's this big long word, but that's basically what it means. So is there anything else? What else do we need to know about you talked about a lot here, but what else do we need to know about getting ourselves, as you've mentioned, on that critical first page, and more importantly, getting more up to the top position?
The biggest thing is this page rank factor. It's getting all these websites to link to you. I don't need 20 websites to link to you. I need hundreds and thousands of websites to link to you, and I need it to happen gradually over time. So Google wants to see that you're popular and you continue to stay popular and you become more popular.
So now, how do you know? I mean, obviously, I'm a business owner. Let's say I have you, which we are engaging with Tom to be doing some of this stuff on our site, by the way. But let's say I have you do something this for my business. how will I know that it's working? How will I know, other than, kind of seeing, obviously I'll see it move up, but is there another way that I can track it, especially if it's going to take some time? How will I know that, you're kind of doing what you say you're going to do?
Yeah, we give you reports. Now, and we generate monthly reports, and you can certainly, on your own, just type in those keywords into Google and see where you place, but quite honestly, you're busy. That's a waste of your time. So internally here, we run reports every week, but we send these out to our customers once a month. So in this example, this is the hostler's homescape, and these are the keywords that he selected. So we're showing our results based on the keywords. So landscaping York, he's in spot number 1 on page 1. And last time we ran the report, he was also in spot number 1. So essentially, he had no change. That's what this little line means.
Wow.
Okay. So if we go down here to landscape designer York, he's spot number 2 on page 1. Previously, he was spot number 3, so he moved up 1 spot. So we're looking at the change. So are we getting better placement? Are we losing placements? So, but in this, for hostlers, he's on the first page for every term that he's asked us to get him ranking on.
Okay, so you wouldn't even necessarily have to, your clients wouldn't even necessarily have to go to Google to see how this was happening. They could actually just see it in a snapshot every month. Is it improving? Is it not improving?
That's exactly right.
And then, Google sort of seems to be changing all the time. I mean, certainly I know being in the tech industry, it's changed quite a bit over the last few years. So what do you guys do to stay on top of those changes? I mean, it sort of seems like a full-time job
It's more than a full-time job. In fact, I have 4 full-time staff people that do this service for our clients. So it's really a matter of staying on top of the industry, and it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of experimentation of what worked, what didn't work. There's some good newsletters out there that people can read. I'd Google like SEO newsletters, and you can probably find some pretty decent ones. Some of the big fears that people have, they hear about, people, I'm worried that my site's going to get blacklisted.
Yeah.
And that means that you've kind of tricked Google into liking you. So you want to make sure that you're not doing things that Google gets upset about, which is kind of some old tactics of, I take white text on a white background and I repeat the keyword 10,000 times. Google doesn't tend to like that. So there's a lot of different things that people are afraid of. But so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're doing everything on the up and up. And certainly link building is a big positive factor. And we haven't had any indications that the link building strategy is a negative strategy, that Google has any problems with it, because that's kind of the fundamentals of Google's algorithm.
Okay. All right, great. So that piece actually hasn't changed that much then.
Google has, I'm going to say last January, February, Google changed their algorithm, and they put more weight on the linking strategies than they had ever before. So all of our clients benefited from Google's change in this last round of changes. So,
right.
Certainly their change in the Google local has happened in the last month or two. As to where you're seeing that placement, that map used to live in the body, and now it's over on the side. And actually, in the last 3 weeks, I've seen it shift around a bunch of times. So we'll see how they settle that out.
Okay, great. I have a few more questions for you, and then we do actually still have some more questions from the audience. I want to make sure that we address those.
Sure.
So, it does, as you said, you have 4 full-time people doing this for clients. So obviously the link building and sort of establishing those and even sort of knowing how to link and where to set those up, it certainly takes some expertise. To be honest, before I spoke with you, I thought it was going to be something out of reach in terms of cost. I thought it was going to be really expensive, because it sounds expensive. So tell us a little bit about that. If somebody were to engage with your firm and have you help them move their site up to the top
Sure.
of Google, what would that cost?
Okay. So you're telling me I'm not charging enough, Pam, is that
No.
okay, for you, the prices have just doubled. For everybody else, they stay as they are here on this screen.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Absolutely, Pam. There are 2 types of words, and really the majority of what we've talked about today so far has all been local words. So in other words, it's a main keyword and it's a town and or state. So in other words, it's computer Lancaster, PA. That would be a local word versus just placing on the word computer. And if you want, we can certainly, I have some examples I can give you. We have national clients as well that they're not looking for local business. They're looking for business all over the country. So for local words, it's $50 per keyword phrase to set it up. So a keyword phrase would be computer Lancaster, PA. And then it's $20 per month per keyword phrase that it's on the first page of Google. Okay, so this is really the critical factor that's different in our pricing model than you typically see in the industry. I don't think you should pay me if you're not on the first page of Google. So if it takes me 30 days to get you up on the first page, it does. If it takes me 6 months to get you up on the first page, you don't pay me for those 5 months that I couldn't do my job.
Yeah, and from personal experience, I did a project for one of our clients, and I worked with literally, I won't mention his name, but literally one of the top, highest paid, emphasize, highest paid
yes.
SEO guys, and he did not yield any results after literally thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars spending with him.
That's right.
And continued to say, well, I can't control that, which so I think it's fantastic that you have that guarantee.
Well, and to some degree, he's right. He can't control it, and I'll hear all the time, well, you can't guarantee it. Well, I guess in a sense I can't guarantee it, but I can guarantee I don't charge you for it.
Sure.
So there's kind of a difference. That do I feel confident that I can do a good job, that I can get you to the first page? Yeah, or this business model wouldn't really work for me. So
yeah, right.
Obviously I'm really highly motivated to get our clients to the first page of Google because I can't bill them if I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
now, Tom, does that also, I know that applies to the local search because you do have, it's a little bit, well, I would think it's a little bit easier. Maybe that's a misconception. Is that same guarantee applied to the national, to clients who have, who are trying to target businesses all over the country?
Absolutely. Yeah, the pricing is just different. So in other words, the pricing for a national keyword is $100 per keyword phrase to set it up, and then $50 per keyword phrase per month. So the price is more than double because it's harder.
Okay. And so what typically, I mean, I know we talked about sort of finding keywords, and there was a long list there of various keywords, and we did talk about analyzing those. But typically, how many keyword phrases do you see most of your clients using and needing to use for these types of services?
It really depends per industry. So in other words, if we do the keyword research and we find, hey, there are 20 good phrases for you, then I wouldn't recommend doing more than what makes sense. But in many cases, it's not, for our clients, it's not about what makes sense. It's about a function of their budget. So we have one client that we go after, I think it's over 180 different keyword phrases for him.
Wow.
So it's a function of his budget. He can afford to pay more on the keywords than maybe somebody who says, well, I'd like to stick around $300. So we're going to make sure that their maximum that we could possibly bill them is going to stay within their budget. And then the other thing we find is that our minimum is 10, so you have to do 10 phrases. So for local, that's a maximum budget of $200 a month, assuming I'm 100% perfect.
Right.
Right. So and here's the thing: you should assume that at some point I will get all of those words, because that's a problem we've had in the past. Oh, well, I picked all these words because Tom, I just didn't think you could do it. Well, okay, well, I'm really sorry. I'm billing you for all of them.
Right,
right.
Absolutely.
So you definitely need to be aware that at some point I'll get all those words.
Okay.
So
well, and that's certainly fair. I mean, it's based on the result, and I do think that's fantastic. And one other quick thing, Tom, we were talking before the call. I mean, this is hugely valuable to businesses because, as you said, if they're not on the first page, people aren't clicking on them at all. And those are hot prospects, hot potential sales going there. But part of the challenge is sometimes you'll come across folks where you can get them to the top, but it actually doesn't help them. Can you just talk about that briefly and kind of how you address that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's kind of no guarantee that you're going to get business as a result of being on the first page of Google. We don't have because we don't have complete control over the whole sales process, the only part that I have control over is to get you on the first page of Google. Then if you're not getting conversion rates, we want to look at, well, do we really have the right keywords? So maybe we'll go back to the keyword research. We'll look at your site and say, okay, what other conversion tools can we use on your site to get people to contact you? So there are a couple things that we like to look at after we find, well, hey, listen, we're getting, we've got you on the first page, we're getting traffic to your site, why isn't it converting?
Okay, great. And some of that, I'm sure, goes back to, well, you showed us that example of the company on the 18th page. If it doesn't look professional or speak to people or have, an easy way for people to respond, all of those elements, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, and that that's another reason why we really are excited about working with you guys, because not only are you experts in terms of getting company to show up on that first page of Google search, but you also have a very strong background for the last 12 plus years in web design. So you're able to look at the site and see if there are things that they need to do foundationally before you help them in this regard. So I think that's really fantastic. And then how about in terms of you said some folks it might take 30 days, it might take 6 months. In terms of a time frame of how long it'll take you to get it up on the first page. But what about time commitment from the business owner? How much time, or the manager, how much time does that client have to put into this process usually?
Oh, they're not going to put much time into it at all. Really, once we're done with the keyword selection and they say, yep, these are the keywords that I want to go after, we don't need our client's involvement at all.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
The only involvement that we're probably going to make some changes to their website itself, so we're going to need access to their website, and then after we make those changes, we're going to communicate back to them to say, these are the changes that we made. If you make changes, please don't overwrite this work, because we've had instances where we made all these changes, we had great placement, and then we ran the report another time, and there was no placement at all. Like, oh my gosh, what happened? You go back to their site, they completely changed their site and didn't let us know. So if you want to keep the placement, you definitely want to not overwrite the work that's been done so that you don't hurt yourself.
People do that, Tom?
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? They're not thinking about it.
Right.
They're not thinking, oh, well, that's going to impact, what I'm paying EZSolution to do for me.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I think that's been some excellent information. I've got a few questions here. Shannon wanted to know, how do you find out your competitors' rankings?
There's a toolbar that you can download for Google. So let's just go back here. So you have this toolbar up here that's it's called PageRank, and it's not automatically in your toolbar. You'll have to download it, so you can see what their PageRank is. Now, unfortunately, Google doesn't update this PageRank on like a moment-by-moment basis. I think it's actually in like a 4 to 6 month cycle. So it's not 100% accurate, but at least it gives you an idea of what's going on there.
Okay. All right,
so
great.
that's how you find that PageRank.
We also, if you've got a few more minutes, we've
Absolutely.
also got a few more questions. Okay. We've got a question from Scott about, do you use spinnable content to submit to article networking sites? I'm not positive what he means by spinnable. Do you know that term?
Yeah, I actually do know what Scott's talking about there. Good question, Scott. You can. Spinnable content is when you download an article and then they have these software tools that let you swap out words that would be synonyms. So essentially it creates a whole new article. So the concept is it spins the article into a new article. You can absolutely do that. You want to be careful that the article isn't, that you didn't rip off the article, that
Sure.
you want to, I'd like it to be an article that you had some input and changes into before you spin it. But you can definitely take an article that you write and then spin it 5 or 6 different ways and then resubmit that article out to article directories. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, Scott, and I'm assuming you were asking that in relation to the linking strategy. So it sounds like that would help in that regard as well, right, Tom?
Absolutely.
Okay. We have another question here from Matt. based on search engines, would you create broader meta tags when you're writing your HTML, CSS, etc. code? So I guess kind of asking, if we're going to be doing sort of broader terms that match the keywords, perhaps that's the question.
I want you to use the exact keywords that you want to go after.
Okay. Okay.
So if that broad word is truly a word that you're going after, then that's great. But if it's not, then I want you to be specific.
Okay. All right, great. Well, this certainly has been informative. I just want to remind everyone, if you do have a question, just feel free to type that into the question pane there. Tom has been gracious with his time here. We've got a few more minutes to pick his brain. So if you do have any questions about how to get your site on that page one, certainly do that. In the meantime, Tom, if folks are interested in taking advantage of your program and getting their site on page one, what do they need to do?
They can give me a call or send me an email, and we'd love to talk about it. Let's just go back out to my website here. So our web address is EZSolution.com. That's the letter E, the letter Z, SOLUTION.com. And you can grab our phone number there. The phone number is 717-291-4689.
Okay, and that number one more time?
Is 717-291-4689.
Okay, and then Tom, if they wanted to email you to request more information, what would be the best email?
It's tom@EZSolution.com.
Okay, so if you're interested in talking with Tom, I've actually known Tom for a few years now, and I can honestly say he's integrity second to none. His business has exploded because of it, and he's doing great things for a lot of businesses. Especially right now, we need to really be, pooling the experts. So I so appreciate your time. So just email him. It's tom@EZSolution.com. We do have, looks like a couple more questions if you've got a few more minutes.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. This one is from Scott. He, I guess, is a fan of your videos, or knows that you're a fan of videos. He just wanted to know if you optimize those within the specific site, or do you concentrate on optimizing within YouTube itself?
I'd optimize more within YouTube itself, so you can put little descriptions with it. Okay. So I would do it in YouTube and not on the site, because remember, it's all about the link from YouTube in, so YouTube is already viewed as an authority site, so the more you can link that over into your site, the better. Okay. And Scott, with those videos, you can embed them right within your site, so they play in your site, but they're pulled from YouTube.
Okay. All right, great. We also have a question from Milan. Oh, what a nice name. And Milan wants to know if a company has a domain name, www.mycompany.com, and then they get a bunch of other domain names. Can you point to those other ones from the main site without affecting the SEO?
Well, Milan, there are two concepts there. One way is that you have all these domain names and they all point to the same site, and we will want to make sure that we handle that properly through your web hosting company so that you're not losing page popularity by having these diverse of domain names. But I'm not sure that that's the question you're asking, or if you have these other domain names and that you actually have separate sites that from your main site you link out to these other domain names. You're going to want to figure out, if you're doing it that way, you're going to want to figure out which is the site that you're really trying to drive the traffic to, and make sure that all your inbound links to that site, that you're gaining the link building popularity from that. But then if you link from your main site out to these other websites, you're going to want to use that no-follow tag so that you don't just negate the work that you did driving these other links into it. Okay. I hope that answered the question.
Okay, yeah, and if it didn't, Milan, feel free to type in the question table again, and we'll definitely address that. And let's see. And Scott wanted to chime in again, Tom, and just say he's one of your clients, and he says you do a fantastic job, and your staff is amazing. He said he just wanted to give you a shameless plug. So.
Well, I know who he is, and let me give him a shameless plug. It's his site is Waterfowler, so if you're a duck hunter, give Scott a call. He can definitely help you out.
Well, now there's a niche business for sure.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes, it is. So.
All right. Well, just obviously, if anybody's got any final questions, feel free to go ahead and type those in so we can ask Tom about that. And just in the remaining minutes here, Tom, what would you like to sort of leave our listeners with? What are the maybe a recap or what's the main thing that they should really focus on to improve their rankings?
I think the main things that they need to focus on are definitely that keyword selection and making sure that you pick the right keywords, just not any old keywords. Then make sure you do good, just solid fundamental optimization, and just really spend all your time focusing on link building, because that's the make it or break it factor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about those links.
All right, excellent. I do have one from Jason here. He actually wanted to know if the same information that you've shared today still applies to Yahoo searches and some of the other search engines.
It does. Generally, what you find is that your Google placements will then follow your other placements, but they're not identical. The other search engines don't weight this link building as heavily as Google does.
Okay.
But as a general rule, Google gets such the majority of traffic versus Yahoo or Bing. Well, Yahoo is Bing, but it's definitely focus on Google, and the other ones will kind of fall in line for you.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, Tom, really, really incredible advice. I mean, and obviously the value you provide is fantastic, as one of your clients popped on and shared. So again, if you want to get more information from Tom and find out how you too can get your site up to the first page of Google, just contact him. It's Tom at EZSolution.com, where you can visit his website, www.EZSolution.com. So thanks again, Tom, for your time today, and everyone have a wonderful day.
You bet. Thank you very much, Pam.